Hello, and welcome back to a new live stream. I'm so excited for everybody who is here. My name is Melanie, Josephine, and if this is the first time that you've come to my channel, subscribe for more videos. You're gonna get a lot of content about, actually today's topic: self-love, self-growth, self-confidence, dating, relationships, and all that good stuff. So welcome. If you have any questions or if you just want to say hi, you can now comment in the chat. I have already received a few questions ahead of time, which is really, really cool. And I'm going to jump right into the topic, and then as we go along, I'm going to answer the questions that I get. So, first of all, I know that this, maybe not this topic, but this word, self-love, I personally feel it's a little bit overused. There are so many videos out there on YouTube, so much content generally on the internet. However, the first point that I want to address in terms of self-love is one that I have actually, I don't know if I've heard this in any video, because I personally learned this through my coaching program, but I don't know. I don't think I've seen any videos on this. I've made one, but but I don't think I've seen any videos on this. So what I want to tell you is that self-love and also self-trust and self-confidence, first and foremost, comes from your own thoughts and how you are supporting yourself with your own thoughts. Because I feel that a lot of the videos that are out in the world, in the online world, address how you can go to a spa, how you can get your nails done, how you should do everything that makes you so-called happy, maybe meet your friends or put some lovely cream on yourself. And while I actually agree that these things can make you feel good, I want to point out something really, really important, which is that if you do all these things for yourself, but inside you're not actually supporting yourself with your thoughts, and that means you're not telling yourself that you love yourself, or you're not telling yourself that you're worthy, that you're enough, that actually I wrote down quite a few things here, that you appreciate yourself. That one that I have been telling myself is, I take good care of myself, I value myself, I respect myself, I trust myself. So if you, and not just these affirmations, I want to make clear that when other people say hurtful things to you, or when other people point out a weakness in you, these other people can only hurt you if you allow that thought in, and if you allow to think that about yourself. So very, very often when somebody says something to us and we feel hurt about it, it's really not so much about them or what they said. It can often be that they've hit a wound, or they've hit a spot, and that there is something that you believe about that. Because if you don't believe it, then they shouldn't have any power over you. So that's basically what this is all about. Like, whatever somebody says to you or about you, depending on what you think about that, then, like, for example, somebody says something awful and you just think, oh, whatever, that's not true. And then you just move on with your day. And then you have 100% supported yourself with your thoughts, because you didn't even let that get to you in any shape or form. But if somebody says something awful and then you take that to heart, then that means there is something inside you that is not fully supporting you. And that actually doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. We all are actually well, I don't know if we're born with it, but our brains just have so much self-doubt and survival thoughts, negative thoughts, like worries, so many negative things that that's basically just how our brain is, and we need to feed it with good thoughts so that the good thoughts can automate itself and not the bad thoughts. And I was recently listening to The Power of Vulnerability by Brené Brown, and she was saying that only 20% of people actually think they're worthy. That means that 80% don't think they're worthy. And I can't remember the exact percentages, but some of these people from the 20% are people who were raised just really lovingly and were always told that they're amazing. Maybe not always, but a lot of the time. And then another part of them just one day decided that they're worthy, and that's just what they're going to tell themselves. And if you haven't listened to this book, I definitely recommend this. Brené is just so funny, and when she figured this out, or when she was interviewing people who said, well, one day I just decided I'm worthy, she was like, what? So yeah, it's just very, very interesting research. But I mean, in a way, it's good news, because it means that you have the power to take control of it. You have the power to create your own worthiness, which you will then generate out into the world. And people treat you the way that you treat yourself. I want to give you one example, and then I want to address one of the questions. I want to give you one example of how you can actually do something really nice for yourself this week. Actually, two examples. So one thing is, I'm just going to be completely honest. I actually haven't even told anybody that I've done this, but last week when I had a break from work, I took myself on a date. And I've never done this, and I always thought it's kind of silly, but a friend of mine encouraged me to do it. And I actually got dressed up. I mean, not crazy dressed up, but I put some makeup on. I wore something nice, and I took myself out. I picked one of my favorite cafes, and I picked up a coffee for me, my favorite one. And then I pretended really that I was on a date. So I asked myself, what would you like to hear? Because if you're on a date with yourself, you have full control over what you're going to say to yourself. And now you may think, oh my gosh, that is just the silliest thing in the whole wide world. I mean, why would I want to hear that from myself? I want to hear that from somebody else. But this is exactly the problem, because whenever you only want to hear that from somebody else, like compliments or nice things about you, you always hand over that power to the other person. But if you get into a habit of praising yourself, complimenting yourself, saying affirmations to yourself, you won't, like over time, you won't need that outside confirmation so much. And this is exactly what I addressed in some of the other live streams. This is what living from the inside out means, that because you're doing these things for yourself, you attract more of that into your life. Like people will actually come and compliment you. People will come, respect you, value you, and be kind to you because you're being so kind to yourself. So what I did, I just said to myself, Melanie, what would you like to hear? And then I came up with something like, oh, you look really beautiful today. Or I really think you do such and such really well. Or like, I just kept saying, what else would you like to hear? What else would you like to hear? And what was interesting, and this is confirming that thoughts turn into feelings and then into action and then into results, is that I started to actually see how my feelings change. Like I started to feel really, really good. Whereas before, before it was kind of stopped at, no, this is too silly, I'm not gonna do that. But if you actually take the time for yourself and do that and ask yourself, what would you like to hear? What would you like to, like, what story would you like to share? What questions should I ask you? I mean, when you take yourself out for a date, you don't only have to tell yourself what you want to hear. You can also think about what stories you want to share when you actually do go on a date. Like, you can use this time really productively. But anyways, let's move on to the next point. The other tip I want to give you is, I've never heard that anywhere. Just popped into my mind the other day, and I was thinking, you know what? I almost never receive cards, except I received a lot of cards for my birthday. Thanks, everybody. but I love cards and I love writing cards, but don't receive very many. And then I thought, as like a self-love, self-worth project, why not write myself cards? So I bought, actually going to show you, I bought really cute cards from Paper Chase. They look like this. They're thank you cards, but it doesn't matter. They're just small and cute. And then I just wrote really nice things to myself. I hope you're not thinking I'm crazy, but this is, if you try it, you'll see that it works, because I'm going to give these cards to a friend, and I'm asking this friend to send me one card per week, probably starting in 2 or 3 weeks, so that I've forgotten what I've written. And every time a card comes, I'll be so excited to see what I wrote to myself. And if you just get into this habit to do all these things for yourself that you want someone else to do, you won't be as dependent, and you will see the fruits of your planting very, very soon. I want to take the first question. So the first question is, how do you know if it's, by the way, I'm not saying names today because I think this is quite a sensitive topic, and yeah, so I'm just gonna read the question. And I haven't really thought about this question very much, but I'm sure I know an answer to this. How do you know if it's your gut telling you something or your trust issues coming forward? So I think this is a really good question, because sometimes we're afraid, and we don't know if our gut, our inner guidance system, is trying to tell us that we shouldn't do this. Actually, I think it's 3 things. One, either it's our gut, giving us a sign we should or we shouldn't do this. It could also be related to, like, if it's like a trust issue, like this person asked, then you could be unsure. Well, am I just scared because I have these trust issues? And then the other thing that I wanted to share is this just a fear that I simply just need to overcome? And then, well, anyways, basically, how to know. So the first thing I want to say is that sometimes this is a little bit tricky to know. And the first step, very, very good connection to your inner guide, or to your, I mean, it doesn't matter what you call it, whether you call it your inner guide, your inner self-confidence, or your connection to God or the universe. It doesn't really matter what you call it. But the more you nourish that relationship to yourself and to the divine energy, the more you'll just know, because you'll be so connected to yourself or to it that more often than not, you'll know. So you need to nourish that connection by having quiet time, by meditating, by, I think it's not just meditating, because that's what you always hear. You should just meditate. But if you just more often than not ask yourself, hey, what's going on? What are you trying to tell me? Like, more like a question, and not just looking at the feeling. I mean, when this feeling comes up, you can actually ask yourself, because you always have a thought and then a feeling, but sometimes we're not aware enough to actually know what the thought was. So the first step is you can ask yourself, okay, what is the thought that is producing this feeling, to find out if the thought actually makes sense, because our brain comes up with so many thoughts and not all of them make sense. The other thing you can do is to write down all of your thoughts. Like I've mentioned in other videos, a thought download. If you write them down, you can then look at them and ask, is this true? Is this like a valid point? Do I actually see value in this thought? Is this thought that I can never say it, serving me? And when you take a closer look, you'll get more information. And this is also very, very helpful when you work on this relationship with yourself. The more journaling you do, the more thought downloads you do, and actually get your thoughts out on paper, because when they're out on paper, they are less powerful, actually more powerful to you and not against you. And you can look at them and they suddenly start to make sense. And then when you look at these thoughts on the paper, you can also ask yourself, is this fear speaking through me? Like fear from past experiences, basically what you related to as trust issues? Or is this just me? Because our brain always wants to stay in the comfort zone and always wants to stay with what it knows. It doesn't like what's unfamiliar, even if what's unfamiliar is what you want, even if what's unfamiliar is better. So this is why so many people struggle to get out of a difficult situation. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of what situations you could be in, but generally speaking, if you've been in a spiral, or you've been growing up in a household that wasn't very supportive, or your mom and dad weren't really a great example of a couple or of a marriage, not to judge them, but basically, if you don't have that good example, then moving forward, that negative example is actually familiar to you. Therefore, you may be attracting that, even though that's not what you want. But the healthy relationship, the happy relationship, the kindness and the respect and the valuing is so unfamiliar to you that you need to make the unfamiliar familiar. And the way that you can do that is you can write down what it is you want, and then you can tell yourself, I'm making myself familiar with the unfamiliar. But you need to keep practicing these thoughts. I hope that helped. That was a long answer to a short question, but there isn't really like a short answer to this. Wow, it's already 20 past 7. Actually, I have quite a few more things here. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about praising yourself. I've only come across this very, very recently due to the Marisa Peer videos on her channel. And I actually have never heard anybody else say this, but it's been so helpful. She says that if you haven't been praised in your childhood, or actually not everything goes back to your childhood, because even if you had an amazing childhood, doesn't mean that you don't have any issues. But now you're out in the world as an adult, so what really, really boosts your self-confidence is self-praise. Just like, and you can really start doing these things on a very little Wait, that doesn't make sense. I want to show you my little praise book. Isn't this beautiful? I love it. I also love these Oxford notebooks. They're just beautiful. Anyways, just on a side note, so I write in this book almost daily, and I write things like, I don't know if these things are too personal that I wrote in here, but basically I take little things that I do every day and I just praise myself, even if it, well, I think this is the point. I'm writing praises in there. I praise myself for things that I would normally not praise myself for. But this is because I have such high expectation, and self-praise really, really boosts your confidence. So you can praise this. You can say, let's say you get up in the morning and you make your bed. And then, I mean, you can write this in your book, but you don't really have to. You can just say to yourself quietly, I did such a good job making this bed. Or I did such a good job making this coffee. Or if you'd work, I did such a good job at calling this client and explaining X, Y, and Z. Or I did such a good job cleaning this bathroom. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The thing is, even if you think you didn't, let's say you cleaned the bathroom, but you didn't do it as good as your mom would have, or you didn't dust every tiniest spot off, but you still did it. So you can just praise yourself. You don't need to wait for anybody else to praise you. And try it, honestly, even if you don't want to write in a book, like just on a regular basis through your day, just praise yourself and see how that boosts your confidence. You just feel more confident. I want to address the other question that was asked tonight, which is also a very, very good question, I find. How to have more trust and feel confident in your decisions. And secondly, should you surround yourself with people who agree with your decisions or people who question your decisions to have another perspective? So the first part is how to have more trust and feel confident in your decisions. So it might sound a bit strange, but this actually is very, very helpful. I have started telling myself that I trust myself. Now, how do I know that I can trust myself? Well, you can never know really. But if you're watching this, you are trying to be a better person. You are working on your self-growth, and when you start to tell yourself that you trust yourself, you automatically start to trust yourself more, and you automatically start to trust your decisions more. Now, this whole topic of decisions, I actually watched many, many videos on this in my online coaching program. And it's very interesting because we all seem to have, I mean, no, not all of us, but a lot of us seem to have a problem with making decisions. And I think it has less to do with your self-trust, or maybe it has to do some with your self-trust, but it also has to do with because the next step then is you are afraid whether you've made the right or wrong decisions. But the truth is, there aren't really right or wrong decisions. You can sit down and gather all the information that you have and just do a really good job on that, so that you can tell yourself, hey, I've made this decision based on X, Y, and Z. This was all that I could do. That there wasn't anything else that I was able to do in that scenario. And I am making this decision, and I just trust myself that it's the right decision. And, very often, if then things don't play out the way that we wanted them or that we expected them, this is when we kind of turn around. And this is actually also how we don't support ourselves then, because then we go like, oh, I should have made the other decision because of X, Y, and Z. Well, but you didn't know X, Y, and Z then. So you can't really turn around and slap yourself in the face in a way, because you didn't have the information that you have now. So what you can tell yourself is that, yes, you were totally meant to make that decision, even if it now looks as if it was wrong. it's still right because you learned this and this from this decision. So I hope that helps. I want to address the other part, and I think this is almost the most more interesting part, because I think, well, I don't know about you, but I've had this conversation with friends, and I think that we all have some friends we know, okay, if I call this person, she's definitely going to agree with me. She's always on my side. And then we know we have another person, we're like, if I call this person, she'll show me like all the different perspectives, or she might not be on my side, because we already know these people so well. So I think, and this again goes back to your self-trust, is, and I'm actually trying this myself. I'm also trying not to say the word trying, because it's not good to use the word trying, because you should either do something or don't do it, but don't try it. But because it kind of gives you an easy exit out if you say try. But I'm just going to use it now anyways. I've been trying to not ask too many people for their input on any decisions that I need to make, or I think very, very carefully who I'm going to speak to about certain decisions. And I usually then sort of pull one or two people, because my experience from the past is when I have pulled many, many people, that in the end, I'm so confused. And I lose that connection to my inner guide if I pull too many people. And this is exactly what you want to avoid. You want to, really the best thing, but I don't always do that either. The best thing is really to just make that decision by yourself, with that inner guide. Unless you need some outside information, then get that information, or pick one or two people. But I also want to address the part where you say, is it better to get someone else's perspective? Well, the thing is, nobody else but you knows better what's best for you. So on paper, this is why on paper, very often, decisions people make look like they're not the right decisions, like this is what it looks to others. But because they're not you, they can't know what's really, really right for you. And this is also, I mean, I don't want to advertise this in any way, but this is also why it's actually very, very good to talk to a coach, because, I mean, nobody's completely objective in this world. We all have our judgments, but it is so that if you talk to a coach, they will then ask you specific questions rather than go to tell you what you should do. Because basically, whether you talk to somebody and they have the same opinion as you, or you talk to somebody and they don't have the same opinion as you, all these people do is draw from their own experiences. Like any topic you take, if that person had a bad experiences about that topic, they're going to be, oh, you need to watch out for that, or you have to be very careful with this, and blah, blah, blah. But I really, really love to talk to people who are just very open, who do a lot of self-growth work, who are very reflected, who maybe see the bigger picture. So if you can make friends with those people, those are the ones you should ask. Yeah, I hope that answered that. But it's definitely a very good question. And summarizing it, I would just say, ask not too many people, and people who are not too opinionated, and where you can have like an open conversation where maybe they will ask you more questions, and then you can, because when somebody asks you lots of questions, you're more likely to find the answer within yourself, just because you've pointed to that. Coming kind of to the end of the live stream, but I still have a few things more to say. So wanna cite something from this book, Transurfing in 28 Days. I haven't finished it yet, but day 15 is I am my goal, and it says, how can there be love in the reflection if the image itself does not contain it? I'm going to read that again. How can there be love in the reflection if the image itself does not contain it? So this is based on the idea that the world is a mirror. So if this is me, and I look in the mirror, and I don't have self-love, self-confidence, and self-trust, how can the mirror show that to me? The mirror cannot show that to me if it's not already in me. I wanted to share this because I thought this is a good quote. Let me quickly see if there was anything else that's important. But I think we are good. I think I've covered a lot, actually. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Yeah, so that's it for today's live stream. Don't forget, next week, 7 p.m. UK time, there will be another live stream. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I have a video every Saturday, and I have a live stream every Monday. And I am excited to see you next Monday. Thank you for joining today. I'm sending you so much love and lots of hugs from here, from London. And I'll see you next week. Bye.